Welcome back to the Midday Show. If you hear windiness in the background, it's because my guest is here today. My guest today is Nickelodeon and TV veteran, if I do say so myself. He's hosted such shows as Brain Surge, Figure It Out. You've seen him on the Kids' Choice Awards so many freaking times. And, of course, he produced You Pick Live. Please welcome back to the program, first time on the Midday Show, Jeff Sutphen. Hello, Jeff.
Hey, Brandon, what's going on? Thanks for having me back on, especially now in the midday. I'm telling you, I woke up today and I said, I wish I could be on a midday radio show. And guess what? Dreams come true, Brandon.
Dreams come
true.
They do. And you made a lot of dreams come true on an old show called You Pick Live, which we talked about the last time you were on. And we're going to talk about it more because, as you know, it was such an influential show to me and probably so many other kids around. And you made dreams come true on that show, too, in small and peculiar ways. Like, of course, the prize wall was one of my favorite segments.
Absolutely. It's one of everybody's favorite segments. It was the best. The thing I loved about the prize wall the most was it didn't matter what the lounger would win, whether it was a bag of dirt or the bucket of bucks. We all celebrated exactly the same every single time. So I think that was such a fun thing.
And that's what I loved about it, because I remember I was taking dance class at the time. I just remember telling my dance class, which was basically a bunch of girls, that I was watching the show You Pick Live, and they gave a kid a plunger as a prize.
That sounds about right.
Yeah, it was the plunger, and they celebrated wildly. Everybody was so happy. Pick Boy, Antonio. It was like in one of the earlier seasons, and it was a plunger, and everybody started dancing, and it was just made me so happy, and it was so funny because that's kid humor, of course, but also just the way you celebrate it can be appreciated on such an adult level.
Yeah, well, I think that, part of it was we never wanted the lounger to feel bad about what they were winning, but at the same time, we always felt kind of like, hey, you didn't have a plunger before you came in here, and now you do.
And you're on TV on top of that.
Exactly. So, no, the prize wall was always fun, and it was, and I think I said this to you before, the prize wall was that moment that we're like, oh, we need, it to feel like a party. And we were in this tiny studio. It was like, well, how do you make this tiny studio feel like a huge party? And it was like, wow, we need to, have this like really cool lighting effect. Well, it's like, well, we don't have the money to do a lighting effect. So it was our stagehand, Roger, literally flicking the light switch on and off in the studio. And, all of us just like, okay, well, we'll give every kid a costume. And then we'll have every kid come out and dance. And it became like this instant party. And what I remember, like one day standing back from it and watching it happen, and my thought was, if anyone is flipping through the channels and comes across this show at this moment, they would have to stop and watch to see what the heck is going on. Because it's just absolute bedlam. I have no idea what's happening. And I think that was a majority of what You Pick Live was about. It forced you to stop and say, what's going to happen next?
Exactly, and that's always how I felt. And I think because Nickelodeon was known for their blocks, if you don't know what a block is, basically it's what You Pick Live was. It was a show, but it was the interstitials in between the shows and the commercials. It wasn't a full 30-minute, an hour show per se, but it acted like one, which was so great. It was basically a kid TRL in a way. Instead of picking music video countdown, you picked the shows that were going to air during that 2-hour block.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, we weren't on continuous. We broke up, in and out of all the commercials and in and out of all the Nicktoons, but at the end, we were on every day from 5 to 7, and I think if you totaled all that time up, it ended up being about 25 to 30 minutes a day
exactly
of live TV. And so ultimately, we were doing the equivalent of a live sketch show
Exactly.
every day. And I remember very early on we got a little write-up in Entertainment Weekly. And it was actually very complimentary. It said it's the equivalent of Total Request Live and Saturday Night Live all rolled into one, but better than both.
Wow.
And and it was kind of like that, really, like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. We're really kind of doing something that's getting compared to two very, big cultural shows. So, I think we quickly realized we were on to something different.
Definitely. And do you have a favorite? Because there was a lot of theme episodes of You Pick Live. Of course, you had the more general themes like Big June. That was a big thing you did. But also, I remember there's a clip on YouTube, very short clip. I wish they had the full show. It was you did a Tonight Show kind of parody throwback.
That was one of my favorite episodes. I'm so glad you brought that up because I wouldn't have remembered right away. But yeah, Brett played like the Johnny Carson type character, and Candace was the Ed McMahon. We did all the classic, Tonight Show type, vehicles, and we had our live band was all just people who worked on the show and could barely play instruments.
Yeah.
Or like played instruments when they were in 8th grade, and they were terrible, which just made it so much funnier.
Yeah, and Antonio was the band leader.
Yeah, he played the triangle, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he did. And you played a game of Stump the Band, and I love humor that when you go back to it later, you either find something different or you realize something that you didn't realize the first time you saw it. And what was great about that is you played Stump the Band, classic game, and so if you don't know what Stump the Band is, in this iteration, Candace had a lounger, and the lounger would say a song, and the band would have to try and play it. And if they did not get it correct, the lounger would win a prize. And of course, because it's You Pick Live, the band did not get it correct. But what they did play, and I really wish some kid would have pulled a fast one, they played every single time "Another One Bites the Dust" by Queen.
Right, but they just changed the lyrics. So, like one lounger said, play Avril Lavigne's Skater Boy. So they would play,
He's just a skater boy. Just a skater boy. Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
I just wish one of the loungers would have said, play Another One Bites the Dust by Queen, and I wanted to see what they would do. And it would have been funny. What if they started playing Skater Boy?
Chances are, considering they pretty much only knew how to play Another One Bites the Dust, and poorly, might I add, that would have been the end of that segment.
Yes.
But no, I mean, I think there was a few things. I mean, I was a big fan, I think we talked about last time, of when we did the Pickles.
Yes.
Which was this fictional band that we put together, and it was such a great. The whole journey of how we put the whole special together and the way it came out, that was just such a really cool thing, because to me, the Pickles was really what You Pick Live was about, which was just we always were scrapping together everything. We were doing things our own way. We had a very non-traditional approach to everything, and we weren't going to get told that we couldn't do something. And that was very much the overall end product of this thing, was absolutely amazing. It's probably to this day something, still the thing I'm most proud of in my career.
Definitely. Really quick, before we head to break, I remember one of the cool things that you did one year, that You Pick Live did, is they merged with Slime Time Live, and they did Summer Slime Live.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. That wasn't the Friday Night Slime, was it?
No, that was it was one of the summers, I want to say maybe 2004, summer of 2004 or 2003, one of the two. And basically, Brent and Candace were in Orlando, and they were on the set of Slime Time, and basically they just did Slime Time Live, You Pick Live Hybrid, and they did like the Slimulator, and basically it was Slime Time Live, but they had the You Pick Live cast on it.
I don't remember. I know we went there for like at the end of season 1 for Go Wild Week, and I know we were there for Big June.
It could have been just the thing that Brent and Candace did.
I think it was something Brent and Candace did. Yeah, I don't remember too much about that.
Yeah, I have a very good memory, so I remember a lot of things that people don't remember. And speaking of me, we'll be right back with more of me and Jeff Sutphen here on the Midday Show here on ECAV Radio. Make sure you follow Jeff at 1380. Follow me at mkabobo, both on Twitter. And we will see you right after the break here on the Midday Show. I am repeating myself, and I don't care. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Midday Show. I'm here with our good friend Jeff Sutphen. Now, Jeff, do you think You Pick Live would work today? Because, of course, there's so many more social media things that you could probably do with it. But do you think You Pick would work today? Because I know Nickelodeon's trying to reboot some of the old 90s Nicktoons and shows. And even though it was like mid-2000s You Pick Live was, it could easily work in a context. Do you think You Pick would work now? And if they do it, would you come back and produce it or something like that?
I would definitely. I mean, it's a two-part question. Do I think You Pick Live could exist today? Yes and no. I think you brought up a good point. Like, there's so many different things now with social media and that interaction. And when You Pick started, we were very much on the forefront of that. We were doing, the live polling, the ticker tape across. I mean, nowadays that stuff is standard, and we were doing it, well before anyone was doing it, especially in a kid's, entertainment capacity. So yes, I think, with the growth in social media and all this other technology, you could do some really cool things. But I think if you want to do it successfully, you have to take what you have and go, how do we push it to the next level? Because that's what we were always doing, was figuring out how do we go bigger and better with what we have and really test the boundaries of that stuff. So I think that's first and foremost. Secondly, I think you have to, I don't know if you can ever say like, oh, we're bringing back You Pick Live, because first, the kids nowadays don't know what You Pick Live was.
Yeah.
So I think you really have to suspend your expectations and say, like, you can call it You Pick Live, you can call it You Pick Live 2.0, whatever you want to call it. But take what was done in the past and put it on the shelf and say, here it was, this was great, this was successful, it was fun, but now we're going to create that next chapter, and we're going to do our own thing. I think, one of the biggest things that made You Pick Live so successful was the relationships that we all had both on and off camera. We were a very tight-knit group, and I think that's key to any show, especially one that you're going to do every day and that you're going to do live where it's a high-pressure situation. So I think that's key, to come up with a group of people that's very passionate about, what they're doing. And I think one of the other big things that made You Pick successful was that it wasn't just Brent and Candace. It was this cast of crazy characters. Brent and Candace, for as crazy as they were the normal ones, surrounded by, Antonio, surrounded by Pick Boy, Garbaggio, Professor Pickens, all the, the cow, all these crazy things were always happening around them. So I think you always want to have, I'm a big fan of having those very
ensemble
out-of-the-box characters. Yeah, exactly, an ensemble cast. And then the second part of the question is, would I like to be involved in it? Absolutely. As hard of a show that was to do, especially on a daily basis, I probably have some of my best, not only work experiences from it, but life experiences. It was just an incredible show to work on. What I learned both professionally and personally, have yet to be matched. So I would definitely jump at the opportunity to, be part of something like that again. But again, the biggest part of my approach to it would be managing those expectations and saying, we're not going to pick up where You Pick left off. We're going to build the next version of You Pick.
Exactly. And I'll come on as a consultant.
Absolutely. You can come on as whoever you want.
Okay. It's a deal. Yeah, we got to get the execs at Nick over here now. But yeah, so is there anything that you wish you could have done on You Pick that you didn't get a chance to do, maybe because you ended it or it didn't thought up and it was an afterthought or something like that?
We did over 400 episodes.
401.
401, and I'm not sure we really left any stone unturned. I think we were all kind of a little shocked when the network decided that they were going to stop doing it. And it wasn't, but at the same time, it was kind of like a good time because we weren't the tired boxer climbing into the ring for one last chance at the title. We went out strong.
Yeah.
We were still very fresh and current and funny creatively. It wasn't one of these things where we had just become this, drab wallpaper of a show. So for that, I'm very thankful. I don't feel there's any regrets. I don't feel we left anything on the table. But, like I said, a chance to get on board with it and do it again would be, I would jump at that.
Definitely. So as I said, You Pick Live was so influential to me. Among other things, it was definitely one show that made me want to become a host because we had, at the time of our recording, I just recently had Damian Fahey from TRL on. He is going to air next week for all you listeners out there. But Damian hosted TRL from 2003 to 2008, and he had similar stories about how it was just a big part of people's lives, not only the people who came on the show, but also the people who watched the show, and that was an influence for me, and You Pick Live especially because it was garnered towards me. It was for someone like me. Do you have a story that kind of reflected that, or?
Yeah, I think there was, that was one of those things, like you had said, I remember very early on, we were out in Times Square shooting, and I remember like a few families had come up to us while we were shooting, and they helped us with the shoot, but then the kids started talking to us, and they're like, "How do you remember the episode where you did this, and then Brent said this, and Antonio did this?" And it was unbelievable to me that, like, they saw something that was done once because we were live and we didn't do reruns. And it was one of those things that they remembered exactly what was said and exactly what had been done. And I found it absolutely amazing that, like, it had such an impact on them that they remembered it so vividly. And that was at that moment where I went, this is the first time I've ever felt like with a job, it's more than just a paycheck. And there's a certain pride that I was always very proud of what we were doing there, but now there was a pride of like, wow, we're actually becoming, part of, the fabric of these kids' lives. And that was a pretty eye-opening experience. The other thing that I thought was great was because we were live, we had such an instant feedback on everything, which was so awesome. There was one day, Brent and Candace were going off to host like Worldwide Day of Play, and they left the studio to Antonio and Pickboy. And of course, before they left the studio, they said, all right, whatever you do, don't knock over that lamp that's precariously balanced on top of that bowl, which is holding the egg. It was just one of those like silly things. And the whole episode, Pickboy and Antonio were going to dance around it and then like at the very end of the episode, it was going to fall over. Well, what ended up happening was Brent and Candace went. They were in like South Carolina or something like that. And as they were getting ready to do the Worldwide Day of Play, we were live. And so Pickboy and Antonio were dancing around, and they accidentally actually knocked it over and broke the egg.
Oh.
Before it was supposed to break. And I remember I talked to Brent later, and he said, the show aired from 5 to 7. He says, we went to do the show, to do our live presentation, and some kid came running up to us and went, Pickboy and Antonio broke the egg. And it was one of those things that, like, they were tattletelling. Like, they had watched the show and then went to Brent and Candace to see them live and started telling Brent and Candace that Pickboy and Antonio had already, like, broken everything that they weren't supposed to. And again, this is like seeing that instant feedback and like how kids were so involved in the show was just, it was just awesome. Like I said, I think we were doing things, incredibly different than they had been done before.
That's an amazing story. And what's crazy is Brent and Candace actually came to Kansas City, and I had no idea, and I didn't get to go. And it's not one of the regrets in my life. It was for the Worldwide Day of Play, but it wasn't one of the regrets in my life, but it was one of those things where I was like, man, I wish I could be there right now. But yeah, that's a great place to end today's episode. Jeff, thank you so much for coming back to the show. We want to of course, have you back on soon, and we'll work that out. Thank you so much.
Oh, Brandon, thanks for having me on, and I'm really digging the new midday format. I'm feeling young and fresh.
Awesome. We will see you next time here on the Midday Show.